Do you ever feel like you just don't have enough information? There's something going on in your life and you cannot understand why the suffering, why the heartache. Maybe it's an emotional challenge, maybe it's a physical challenge. You've got an illness that can't be figured out. There's something happening. And you've been praying to the Lord and you've been hoping for an outcome that feels a little bit better than the one you're experiencing right now. And there comes a point where you're just having a hard time understanding what God is doing. You figure either if God does know about it, then he must not be caring like I really want him to care for me. And if God doesn't know about it, then, well, that's really scary. Like I'm wondering whether God is real. In going through a challenge like that, perhaps you can relate to a man named Joseph. He happens to be the real famous one, not the Egyptian, almost Pharaoh Joseph, but this is the Joseph who was the stepfather of Jesus. So in Matthew chapter 1, we hear the story of Joseph. We hear him excited to be married to this wonderful young lady, and then what does he find out? He finds out that this young lady is pregnant, and it's not because of him. And like, where does your head go in a moment like that? He's engaged to her, and his life must have been turned completely upside down, his heart ripped out of his chest. What does he do? Joseph is, by God's grace, an amazingly noble man. And in a moment when he believed himself to be sinned against, did he try to get back at her as much as he could? He actually doesn't. He decides that he's not going to publicly point the finger at her and do everything he can to make life miserable for her by shaming her. Instead, he decides that he is going to set her free, to divorce her, to say, you're no longer going to be my wife. And he was going to do it privately. That's a noble man, a miracle of the Holy Spirit. His heart still must have been breaking, but in that most difficult moment, he was honoring his Lord. So Matthew chapter 1, verse 20. After he had considered all of these things, the angel shows up. Like, then the angel shows up. Why didn't the angel show up earlier? Mary got that. She got an announcement before it happened, so she knew how it was all going to play out. Why didn't Joseph get an announcement beforehand? Like, be ready for this. I know it's going to feel and seem really, really weird, but this is a miracle. This is God keeping his promise. He didn't get that. And that makes you wonder, did God care about Joseph? The fact is, God did care about Joseph, and this teaches us a huge thing about God. We're tempted to think that when things are going wrong in our lives, even when we're being sinned against, that must be evidence that God has let us down, that in some way God is responsible, that he doesn't love us like he should. That's simply not the case. God does love you. He loves you very much. He loved the stepfather of his only son, Jesus Christ. And he was willing to let Joseph go through a period of time when everything seemed upside down. Now, yes, the angel, he came and told Joseph, it cleared everything up. And it may happen in your lives that there's a moment where it seems everything clears up. Now you get it, or the trouble is taken away. But that may not happen in this life. And if it doesn't happen in this life, then you can know this. There is going to be a moment when you're going to see angels. I don't know how many of them, but you're going to see a ton. And it's because you're in heaven, and you're going to see how the Lord brought you to the place where you needed to be. He keeps all of his promises. He will not let you be tested beyond what you're able to bear. And he will make sure that in the end, you're going to see, like Joseph, you're going to see that those moments when it felt like everything was lost were not evidence that God did not love you. There is a perfect plan beyond our understanding so often behind the scenes that carries on even when your eyes do not see it.